The headache hit me before I even opened my eyes, not the dull throb of too many beers. This was different. Sharp. Chemical. Like someone had taken a jackhammer to the inside of my skull and left it running. I kept my eyes closed for a long moment, trying to piece together where the hell I was. The pillow smelled wrong. Lavender and something floral. My apartment smelled like motor oil and the pizza I'd forgotten to throw out 3 days ago. This wasn't my bed. My heart started pounding. Slowly, carefully, I turned my head to the left. Pink hair. Bright, shocking, cotton candy pink hair spread across the pillow next to me. A woman. Definitely a woman, based on the soft snoring and the curve of her shoulder under the blanket. Not Isabel. Thank God, I thought first. Then, what the hell happened last night? I looked down at myself, still wearing my jeans. My button-down shirt was unbuttoned but still on. My shoes were off, placed neatly by the door. The woman beside me was in flannel pajamas, the covers pulled up to her chin. Nothing happened. I was almost certain nothing happened. But that didn't explain why I was here. I sat up slowly, the room spinning. The apartment was small but clean. Bookshelves lined every wall, crammed with paperbacks and hardcovers. Colorful scarves draped over the curtain rod. On the desk by the window, I spotted stacks of worksheets with gold star stickers. A teacher's apartment. The morning light filtered through cheap blinds, casting stripes across the hardwood floor. I checked my phone. 7:43 a.m. Sunday morning. 3 missed calls from Isabel. 1 text message. Where are you? Good question. I rubbed my eyes, trying to force my brain to cooperate. Fragments of memory floated up like debris from a shipwreck. Devon's party. That's where we were. Labor Day weekend, 2004. Devon Callahan's rental house in Arlington, the one he wouldn't shut up about. 3 bedrooms, man, 2-car garage. Insurance is treating me right. I remembered Isabel getting ready. That red dress she knew I loved. The way she smiled at herself in the mirror. I remembered walking into Devon's place. The music too loud, the drinks flowing. Devon's hand on my shoulder. Patrick, my man, glad you could make it. I remembered Isabel dancing. With Devon. Their bodies too close, his hands on her hips. Her head thrown back, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. I remembered confronting her by the kitchen. What the hell, Isabel? Her eye roll, that dismissive little laugh. It's just dancing, Patrick, God, don't be so insecure. And then, Devon handing me a whiskey. Here, buddy, you look like you need this. After that, nothing. A black hole where ours should be. I stood up, gripping the nightstand for balance. The woman with pink hair stirred but didn't wake. I needed answers, but I wasn't going to get them by shaking awake a stranger. I moved quietly through the apartment, searching for clues. In the kitchen, I found a teacher's ID badge stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet. Molly Brnnan Jeffferson Elementary School. 4th grade, based on the class photo next to it. Molly. Okay. At least I had a name. I was about to leave when I spotted something in the corner of the living room that didn't fit. Golf clubs. A brand new set, expensive as hell, still had the price tag dangling from the bag. They looked completely out of place in this modest apartment full of books and second-hand furniture. And suddenly, I remembered. Devon, at the barbecue last month, bragging about his new clubs. Top of the line, Patrick, $2,000, you should see my swing now. These were Devon's clubs. I was certain of it. Why were Devon's golf clubs in this woman's apartment? My mechanic's brain started working, diagnosing the problem, following the chain of cause and effect. Devon drugged me. That's why I felt like death. That's why I couldn't remember anything after that whiskey. I'd heard stories about roofies, but I never thought. This woman, Molly, must have gotten me out of there. Brought me here, left Devon's clubs in her car by accident or maybe on purpose. But why would Devon drug me? The answer was obvious. I just didn't want to see it. I grabbed the driver from the golf bag, not as a weapon, as evidence. Proof of what that son of a bitch had done. I found my shoes, slipped them on, and took one last look at the pink-haired woman still sleeping peacefully. I owed her a thank you, at minimum. But that could wait. Right now, I needed to see something for myself. The drive to Devon's place took 15 minutes. September in Virginia, the air already warm and thick at 8 in the morning. The kind of humidity that makes your shirt stick to your back before you've finished your first coffee. I parked on the street, the golf club lying across my passenger seat. Devon's car was in the driveway, so was Isabel's Honda. My hands were steady as I walked to the front door. Weird, right? You'd think they'd be shaking. But there was this cold clarity settling over me, like the part of my brain that handled emotions had just shut off. I still had the spare key Devon gave me 6 months ago. For emergencies, he'd said, in case I lock myself out or something. Yeah, or something. The house was quiet. I moved through the living room, past the kitchen with its empty beer bottles and abandoned Solo cups. The stairs creaked under my weight. 3 bedrooms upstairs. First door, empty. Second door, slightly ajar. I pushed it open. And there they were, Isabel on her back. Devon on top of her. Both of them naked, the sheets tangled around their legs, stained with evidence I didn't want to think about. They were going at it. Right there. 8 in the morning, and they were going ATIT. Isabel's eyes were closed, her mouth open, making sounds I'd heard 1,000 times before. Sounds I thought were just for me. I watched for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Long enough to burn the image into my brain forever. Then I spoke. "Get off my girlfriend, Devon," Isabel screamed. Devon scrambled backward so fast he fell off the bed, taking half the sheets with him. Isabel grabbed a pillow, holding it against her chest like that would somehow make this better. "Patrick?" Devon's voice cracked. "Jesus Christ, man, this isn't what it—" I held up the golf club, not threatening, just present. "You drugged me last night," I said. My voice sounded strange, calm, flat. "Don't lie, I know what roofies feel like now." Devon's face went white. Isabel's expression shifted, fear to defiance in about 2 seconds flat. "You were drunk," she snapped. "You passed out. I was bored." What was I supposed to do? Sit around and wait for you to wake up? "How long?" Silence. "How long, Isabel?" Devon broke first. Of course he did. Spineless bastard. 2 months, he muttered. "Look, man, it just happened. We didn't plan." "Shut up." I turned to Isabel. "I'm taking my apartment key. Your stuff will be at your mother's house by noon. We're done." Isabel laughed, actually laughed. "You can't be serious. Patrick, come on, it was just sex. It didn't mean anything." I walked to the dresser where Isabel's purse sat, found my apartment key on her keyring, removed it, put it in my pocket. Then I turned to Devon. "You're married, aren't you?" The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. "I saw the tan line on your ring finger at the barbecue last month. Took me a while to figure out why you'd take off your wedding ring at a party, but I get it now." Isabel's head whipped toward Devon. "What?" "Linda, right?" I continued. "Works at Georgetown Hospital, nursing supervisor. You mentioned her once back before you started screwing my girlfriend." "Patrick," Devon started. "You two deserve each other." I headed for the door. "Enjoy the fallout." I walked out of that room with Isabel screaming at Devon behind me. "You're married? You son of a bitch, you're married?" I placed the golf club carefully under Devon's rear tire on my way to my car. Petty? Maybe, but satisfying. As I drove away, I caught one last glimpse in my rearview mirror. Isabel storming out the front door wrapped in a bedsheet, still screaming. And you know what I felt? Not heartbreak, not rage. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. The woman I'd been planning to propose to by Christmas had been sleeping with my friend for 2 months. My so-called buddy had drugged me so he could have uninterrupted access to her. And somehow, watching them destroy each other in that driveway, I felt like I'd just escaped a burning building. I didn't know it then, but my life was about to change in ways I couldn't possibly imagine, all because of a pink-haired teacher and a fortune I wasn't ready to hear. My apartment felt different when I got back. Same furniture, same layout, same coffee stain on the carpet that I kept meaning to clean, but the air was wrong, contaminated somehow. Like Isabel's betrayal had seeped into the walls. 8 months, that's how long we'd lived together. 8 months of shared meals, shared showers, shared everything. I thought I knew her. I thought I understood who she was. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. I grabbed garbage bags from under the sink and got to work. Her clothes went first. Dresses, blouses, that red thing she wore to Devon's party. I didn't fold anything. Just shoved it all in, handful by handful. Her makeup from the bathroom counter, her shampoo that smelled like coconut, her toothbrush. The photos were harder. Us at the National Mall, cherry blossoms in the background. Us at that crab place in Baltimore where she got butter all over her chin. Us at my mom's house in Baltimore for Easter, Isabel charming the pants off everyone. Trash, all of it. I was cleaning out her jacket pockets when I found it. A receipt, Marriott Hotel, dated 3 weeks ago, one night, $247. I checked the date. September 4th. A Saturday. I'd been working late at the garage that night, trying to finish a transmission job. Isabel said she was having dinner with her girlfriends. There was another receipt tucked behind it. Victoria's Secret. Same date, $89. 2 months, Devin said, but the evidence suggested longer. I sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, the bed I'd been sharing with a liar, and let myself feel it. 10 minutes, that's what I gave myself. 10 minutes to fall apart. Then I loaded the garbage bags into my truck and headed to Southeast D.C. Lee Ray's lived in a narrow row house on a street lined with identical narrow row houses. She'd been renting the same place for 15 years, ever since Isabel was 11. The paint was peeling. The front steps sagged, but she'd planted flowers in window boxes, and they were blooming like crazy despite the late summer heat. Lee opened the door before I even knocked. She must have seen my truck pull up. She was still in her waitress uniform from Rosie's Diner, pink dress, white apron, comfortable shoes that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, gray showing at the temples. 46 years old, but the lines around her eyes made her look older. 23 years of double shifts and single parenting will do that to you. Her gaze dropped to the garbage bags in my hands. Oh no, her voice was quiet. What did she do? Something about the way she said it, like she'd been waiting for this moment, dreading it, cracked something open inside me. Can I come in? She stepped aside without a word. Lee's kitchen was small and warm and smelled like the coffee she couldn't really afford but bought anyway because it was her one luxury. I sat at the tiny table where I'd eaten 100 meals over the past year. She poured 2 mugs and sat across from me. Tell me everything, she said, so I did. The party. Devin's hands on Isabel's hips. The confrontation. That whiskey that tasted normal but knocked me into a black hole. Waking up in a stranger's apartment with a headache that wouldn't quit. Going back to Devin's house. Finding them together. Lee listened without interrupting. Her face cycled through shock, anger, disappointment, settling finally on something that looked a lot like grief. And Devin's married, I finished. Has a wife. Linda. Isabel didn't know, or maybe she did and didn't care. Hard to tell with her at this point. Lee was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked around the table, and pulled me into a hug. Not romantic, not weird, just human, the kind of comfort you give someone who's been kicked in the teeth. I broke. First time I'd cried in front of anyone since my dad's funeral 2 years ago. Real tears, ugly tears, the kind that leave you gasping for air. Lee held on until I was empty. Then she poured more coffee and sat back down, her hands wrapped around her mug like she needed the warmth. I raised a fool, she said quietly. I don't know where I went wrong, Patrick, I really don't, but I'm sorry, for whatever my apology's worth. It's not your fault. Feels like it is. She shook her head. You're a good man, you treated her right. She had everything with you and she threw it away for what? Some insurance salesman with a nice car? I laughed, bitter, hollow, but still a laugh. $2,000 golf clubs, that's what he bragged about, his golf clubs. Lee's smile was sad. Men like that, they collect things, women included. He didn't want Isabel. He wanted what he couldn't have. Well, he can have her now. Good riddance to both of them. We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that feels comfortable, not awkward. Outside, a car alarm went off and then stopped. Kids shouted on the street. Normal sounds of a normal Sunday morning in Southeast D.C. Can I tell you something? Lee's voice was different now. Smaller. Of course. Isabel's father. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Everyone thinks he just left, walked out when she was 3, and that's true, but there's more. I waited. He was sleeping with my sister, for 2 years, while I was working doubles at the diner to pay our bills, while I was coming home exhausted and making dinner and putting Isabel to bed. He was meeting my sister at motels, taking her out on dates, planning their future together while I thought we were building ours. Jesus, Lee, I found out the same way you did, walked in on them. My own house, Patrick, my own bed. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. He packed his things that night, moved in with her. Haven't seen either of them since. I'm sorry. 23 years ago. She shrugged, but I could see the weight of it still pressing down on her. Haven't dated since. Haven't trusted anyone enough to try. Once you've been betrayed like that, by someone you loved, by someone who was supposed to be family, it changes something in you. I understood exactly what she meant. So when I say I know how you feel right now. Lee reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I mean it. I've been exactly where you are, and I survived. You will too. Her hand was warm, small but strong. Waitress hands, rough from work, gentle by nature. I squeezed back. We talked for 3 more hours about betrayal, about trust, about the strange ways life kicks you when you're already down. Lee made sandwiches at some point, nothing fancy, just turkey and cheese, and we ate them standing at the kitchen counter like old friends. She was funny. That surprised me. I'd known her for a year, seen her at holidays and Sunday dinners, but always with Isabel there, always in the context of being the girlfriend's mom. This was different. This was just Lee. Finally, around 3 in the afternoon, I stood to leave. Don't be a stranger, Lee said at the door. You're still family to me. Whatever happens with Isabel, that doesn't change. Thank you for everything. She touched my arm, brief, light, but something in that touch stayed with me the whole drive home. That night I dreamed about Lee's smile, her laugh. The way she'd looked at me across that tiny kitchen table, like she actually saw me. I woke up confused. And honestly, a little ashamed. 2 weeks passed. I threw myself into work at Sullivan's Garage, the shop my dad opened 30 years ago, the shop he left me when the cancer took him in 2002. Just me and old Martinez, a 60-year-old Cuban guy who'd been my dad's right hand since before I was born. Between the two of us, we kept the place running. Barely. September in DC means everyone's back from vacation, everyone's realized their car barely survived summer, and everyone needs an oil change right now. I worked from 6 in the morning until 9 at night. Came home covered in grease. Ate cold pizza standing over the sink, fell into bed exhausted. It helped. The exhaustion didn't leave room for thinking. Isabel tried calling, twice on Monday, 3 times on Tuesday. By Wednesday, she'd switched to texting. We need to talk. Patrick, please. I made a mistake. Can we just talk? Thursday brought a voicemail. Patrick, this is ridiculous. You can't just throw away 2 years over one mistake. Call me. 2 years, she said. Like that made it better. Like the length of our relationship somehow offset the 2 months she'd been spreading her legs for my friend. I deleted everything without responding. Brian Torres, my best friend since high school, came by the garage on Friday with a 6-pack and a bucket of wings from the place on Georgia Avenue. Heard about Isabel, he said, settling onto an overturned milk crate in the back room. Word travels fast in this city. What are people saying? That she's been going around telling everyone you cheated on her. Brian snorted. Nobody believes it, man. Everyone knows Devin's a scumbag, and everyone knows you. What's that supposed to mean? You're Patrick Sullivan, you've dated the same woman for 2 years. You work 12 hours a day, you go home, you don't cheat, you don't lie, you're boring as hell, honestly. He grinned, but in a good way. I threw a balled-up shop rag at his head. He dodged it, laughing. Seriously though, Brian said, sobering up, you okay? I'm fine. Liar. I will be fine, how's that? Brian nodded, accepting that. We ate wings and drank beer and talked about nothing, football, the new Star Wars DVD coming out, whether his girlfriend Maria was ever going to let him buy a motorcycle. Normal friend stuff. It helped. But at night, alone in my apartment, my brain wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about Lee, her kitchen, her laugh, the way she'd held me while I cried. Don't be a stranger, she'd said. I told myself it was gratitude. She'd been kind to me during the worst day of my life. Of course I was thinking about her. That's normal, that's human. But gratitude doesn't explain why I kept picturing her face when I closed my eyes. Gratitude doesn't explain the dreams. 2 weeks after the breakup, I drove to Lee's house. I told myself I was checking on her, making sure Isabel wasn't causing problems, making sure she was okay. I told myself a lot of things. Lee answered the door in her waitress uniform, just home from a double shift. Her face lit up when she saw me, genuine happiness, no pretense, and something shifted in my chest. "Patrick, I was hoping you'd come by." She ushered me inside, made dinner spaghetti with sauce from a jar, garlic bread from the discount aisle. We ate at her tiny kitchen table, talking about nothing and everything. The garage, her regulars at the diner. The neighborhood kids who kept kicking their soccer ball into her flower boxes. A movie she'd seen on TV last week. I noticed things I shouldn't have noticed. The curve of her neck when she turned to check the stove. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The lines around her eyes that deepened when she laughed. She was beautiful. Not in the obvious way, Isabel was beautiful, all makeup and careful presentation. Lee was beautiful the way a well-worn book is beautiful, comfortable, real. After dinner, we moved to the couch. Same couch I'd sat on 100 times before, back when I was just Isabel's boyfriend, back when Lee was just my girlfriend's mother. But Isabel wasn't here now, and I wasn't that person anymore. "I keep thinking about you," I said. The words came out before I could stop them, and I feel like a creep for it. Lee was quiet for a long moment. "I think about you too," she finally said, "and I feel like a terrible mother." The tension in the room was suffocating. Every breath felt deliberate. Every second stretched into forever. I stood up. "I should go. She caught my hand. "Don't," her voice cracked. "Please, I'm so tired of being alone." I looked down at her. This woman who'd raised a daughter by herself, who'd worked 20-hour days for 2 decades, who'd been betrayed by the people she loved most and somehow kept going. She was lonely. I was lonely. We were both broken in the same places. "This is a bad idea," I said. "I know. If Isabel finds out, she won't. This could ruin everything." Lee stood up, still holding my hand. She was shorter than me by almost a foot. I had to look down to meet her eyes. "Patrick," she said softly, "I haven't let anyone touch me in 23 years. I've been so goddamn scared. But you," she squeezed my fingers. "You feel safe. Is that crazy? Probably. I don't care." She kissed me, and God help me, I kissed her back. What happened next? I'm not going to give you details. This isn't that kind of story, but I'll tell you this, it was slow. Careful, both of us terrified of what it meant. Afterward, Lee cried. "What are we doing?" she whispered. "You're young enough to be. God, this is wrong." I held her. "We're 2 consenting adults. We're not hurting anyone. We're hurting ourselves." She looked up at me with wet eyes. "This can only end badly." She was right. I knew she was right. I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive. What followed was 6 weeks of secrecy. I used the phone tracking app I'd installed on Isabel's phone back when we were together. Checked her location before every visit to make sure she wasn't at her mother's house. Lee and I met when we could, her place mostly. Sometimes restaurants in Maryland, hotels in Virginia, anywhere we wouldn't be recognized. We were careful, paranoid even. "You flipped a switch in me," Lee told me one night, lying in her bed with her head on my chest. I forgot I could feel like this. She told me things she'd never told anyone. Her dreams of owning her own restaurant someday. Her fear that she'd wasted her life. Her regret at not finishing college. I told her about my dad. The cancer that ate him alive over 8 months. Watching him shrink in that hospital bed until he was barely there at all. Inheriting the garage and not knowing if I could keep it running. We were falling for each other. That was obvious. We were also building something that couldn't last. I knew it. She knew it. We did it anyway. Mid-November, I showed up at Lee's house with flowers. Stupid, maybe. Someone might see, but I didn't care anymore. I'd been practically living there for 6 weeks. Her neighbors probably already knew something was going on. She opened the door, and I knew immediately something was wrong. Her face was pale, drawn, like she hadn't slept in days. We need to talk. Those 4 words, every man's nightmare. I followed her inside. She didn't offer coffee, didn't sit down, just stood in the middle of her kitchen, arms wrapped around herself. This has to stop, Patrick. Tonight, I can't see you anymore. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What? Why? Did Isabel find out? No, she shook her head. And she never will. Please don't ask me to explain. Just go. Lee, G.O. Her voice cracked on the word. She was shaking, crying. I wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, but something in her face stopped me. She was terrified, not of me, of something else. Is something wrong? I asked quietly. Are you sick? Did something happen? Please, Patrick. She wiped her eyes. Just leave. It's better this way. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the woman I'd fallen in love with, because that's what it was, love, even if I'd never said it out loud, and watched her shut me out completely. Then I left. She closed the door before I reached the sidewalk. I heard the deadbolt click. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes trying to understand what had just happened. I never got an answer. The next month was hell. I stopped eating properly, worked 16-hour days, drank alone at night, staring at the TV without seeing it. Brian noticed. You look like death, brother. He was behind the bar at O'Malley's, the pub where he'd worked since we were both 21. What happened? I couldn't tell him, couldn't tell anyone. How do you explain that you fell in love with your ex-girlfriend's mother, that she dumped you and you don't even know why? Just tired, I said. Business stuff. Brian didn't believe me, but he let it go. A week before Thanksgiving, I ran into Isabel at the Safeway on 14th Street. She looked terrible, weight lost, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. Patrick. She said my name like she'd been hoping to see me. Can we talk, just for a minute? I should have walked away. I didn't. Fine, 1 minute. We stood in the cereal aisle, 2 people who used to share a life, now strangers. Devin's wife found out, Isabel said. About us, about everything. Good. She destroyed him, Patrick, made calls to his boss, his clients, everyone. He got fired, lost his house. Last I heard, he's selling used cars in Manassas. She almost smiled. Commission only? I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know, I'm not with him. I haven't been since you walked out. He dropped me the second things got hard. Sounds about right? I made a mistake, Patrick, a huge mistake, and I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you. It was true. I'd moved past hatred into something emptier, indifference. I just don't care anymore. That hurt her more than anger would have. I could see it in her face. Good. I left her standing in the cereal aisle and drove home. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, Brian showed up at my apartment unannounced. Get dressed, we're going out. I don't want to. I don't care what you want. My cousin's kid has a thing at her school. Carnival, fundraiser, you're coming. Brian, Patrick. He grabbed my shoulders. You've been a zombie for a month. I don't know what happened, and you clearly don't want to tell me. Fine, but you need to get out of this apartment before you lose your mind completely. He wasn't wrong, so I went. Jefferson Elementary School was in a nice neighborhood in Arlington, tree-lined streets, American flags on every porch, minivans in every driveway. The carnival was set up in the parking lot and football field. Games, food stalls, a bounce house for the kids. Brian's cousin's daughter was maybe 6 years old. She ran off with her friends the second we arrived, leaving Brian and me to wander aimlessly through the crowd. I was standing by the cotton candy machine, feeling sorry for myself when I saw her. Pink hair. Bright, shocking pink hair, just like that morning 2 months ago. The woman from Devin's party, the one whose apartment I'd woken up in. She was running a game stall, helping kids throw bean bags at stacked bottles. Laughing, comfortable, she looked up. Our eyes met across the crowd. She smiled like she'd been expecting me. Patrick Sullivan, she said when I walked over. I was wondering when you'd find me. Her name was Molly Brennan, 29 years old. 4th grade teacher at Jefferson Elementary. I know we met under weird circumstances, she said, stepping away from the game stall while a volunteer took over. But I've been hoping I'd run into you again. Why didn't you wake me up that morning? I had so many questions. She shrugged. You needed to see what you needed to see. If I'd woken you up, you might have stayed. And then you wouldn't have found out about Isabel and Devin until later. Maybe never. How did I end up at your apartment? Anne and I saw what Devin did to your drink. She nodded toward a red-headed woman by the hot dog stand. My friend Anne, we got you out of there before anything worse happened. And Devin's golf clubs? Molly laughed. He'd asked me to hold them earlier. Put them in your car, they'll get stolen if I leave them inside. When we were dragging you out, you kept trying to grab them, wanted to hit him over the head. I remembered nothing about that, but it sounded like something I'd do. Why didn't you tell someone, call the cops? And say what? I think this guy drugged his friend, but I have no proof. She shook her head. I figured you'd figure it out on your own. You seemed smart, even unconscious. There was something about her, an energy, a knowing quality in her eyes that made me feel like she could see right through me. Let me buy you a coffee, I said, as a thank you for getting me out of there. I have a better idea. She took my hand casually like we'd known each other for years and led me toward a colorful tent at the edge of the carnival. What's this? I do fortune readings for the fundraiser. She pulled back the tent flap. One of my talents, you might say. Inside, a small table covered with a purple cloth, tarot cards, a teapot, 2 chairs. Sit, Molly said. Let me tell you what I see. I should have laughed it off. Should have said no thanks and gone back to feeling sorry for myself by the cotton candy machine. But something made me sit down. Molly's demeanor changed the moment we were inside the tent. She'd been casual, friendly, warm. Now she was focused. Intense, like someone flipping a switch. Her hair was red today. She changed it constantly, she explained. I like transformation, keeps things interesting. She handed me a deck of worn tarot cards. Shuffle these, don't think about anything specific, just let your mind wander. I shuffled. The cards were soft with age. She poured tea into a small cup. Drink this, not all of it, leave a little at the bottom. The tea was cold, bitter. I drank most of it, then handed the cup back. Molly swirled the dregs, studying them. Her eyes went distant, unfocused. When she spoke, her voice was different, deeper, older. You will meet a woman with fire in her hair. She will warm your bed, but not your heart. A chill ran down my spine. Within the year, marriage, a daughter, but the path is shrouded in grief. Marriage? I tried to laugh. I just got out of a relationship. I'm not your first wife, Molly frowned, concentrating harder. I can't see her clearly, only shadows, loss, sacrifice. My throat was dry. This wasn't fun anymore. But your second wife, she will be your true partner. You'll know her by winter in her hair, white like snow. Second wife, I don't even have a first wife. Molly didn't seem to hear me. Her eyes were closed now, her voice barely a whisper. 3 children will follow, a long life, but the road to get there. The road is dark, Patrick, so dark. She stopped, took a shuddering breath. When she opened her eyes, they were normal again, warm, a little confused. I don't always remember what I say during these, she admitted. The sight comes and goes. I didn't have words. That was quite a performance. Molly's gaze was steady. It's not a performance, Patrick, I wish it were. The tent flap opened. Anne the redhead stuck her head in. Molly, the next person's waiting. Molly nodded, standing up. She handed me a piece of paper with her phone number. Call me if you ever want to talk about anything. Her smile was sad. And Patrick, when you meet the woman with fire in her hair, be careful, she's not what you think. I left the tent in a daze. Brian found me 10 minutes later, wandering past the bounce house. You okay, man? You look like you saw a ghost. Something like that. I drove home with Molly's prophecy echoing in my head. Woman with fire in her hair. Marriage within the year, a daughter, grief. Second wife with winter in her hair. Impossible, ridiculous. But when I closed my eyes that night, I saw Anne's red hair gleaming under the carnival lights. And I remembered Molly's warning, she's not what you think. What the hell did that mean? I wouldn't have to wait long to find out. 1 week after the carnival, I was back at O'Malley's pub. Same barstool I'd been warming for years. Same neon Budweiser sign buzzing in the window. Same smell of stale beer and buffalo wings that somehow felt like home. Brian was working the bar, shooting me worried looks every time he passed by. I'd been nursing the same Guinness for an hour, watching the foam go flat. You gonna drink that or just stare at it? He asked, wiping down the counter. Still deciding. Patrick, man. You got a snap out of this. Whatever's eating you, I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been a zombie since that carnival. Did that fortune teller lady say something that? Brian, drop it. He held up his hands in surrender and moved down the bar to serve a group of college kids celebrating someone's 21st birthday. The truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about Molly's prophecy. A woman with fire in her hair. She will warm your bed but not your heart. Marriage, a daughter, grief. Your second wife, winter in her hair. Ridiculous, impossible. And yet here I was, unable to shake the feeling that something was coming. Something I couldn't stop. Mind if I join you? I turned. Red hair, bright, flame-red hair cascading over bare shoulders. Ann Palmer, Molly's friend from the carnival, sliding onto the stool beside me like she belonged there. She was wearing a green sweater that matched her eyes and jeans that fit like they were painted on. Her smile was confident. Predatory, almost. Free country, I said. Buy me a drink? I flagged Brian down. Whatever she's having. Whiskey sour. Ann's eyes never left my face. Molly told me about you, said you were one of the good ones. Did she? Also said you were off limits. Ann leaned closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something spicy, aggressive. She saw something in your future, something important, told me to stay away. But here you are. Here I am, her smile widened. The thing about Molly's predictions. They're not always right. She sees possibilities, not certainties. She told me the same thing. So you know. Ann accepted her drink from Brian, who was watching us with obvious suspicion. I don't believe in destiny, Patrick. I believe in chemistry, in attraction, in two people deciding they want something and taking it. She put her hand on my arm. Warm, direct. I felt something when we met at the carnival. Didn't you? Had I? I'd been so focused on Molly, on her strange prophecy, that I barely noticed Ann. But now, with her sitting beside me, her attention fully focused on me like I was the only person in the room. Maybe, I admitted. Then let's find out if it's real. She raised her glass. I raised mine. We clinked. And just like that, Ann Palmer entered my life. 3 weeks. That's how long it lasted. Ann was nothing like anyone I'd been with before. Not Isabel's manipulation, not Lee's tenderness. Ann was efficient. That's the word that kept coming to mind. Efficient. She moved into my apartment within 4 days. Not officially, she kept her own place, but her toothbrush appeared in my bathroom. Her shampoo in my shower, her clothes in my closet. The sex was athletic, frequent, almost mechanical in its intensity. You're quiet, she said one night, lying beside me in the dark. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Liar. She propped herself up on one elbow. You're thinking about her, the woman Molly predicted. I don't even know who that is. Maybe it's me. Ann smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Fire in my hair, right? That's what Molly said. Something like that. So maybe the prophecy's already coming true. Maybe I'm your destiny. She said it like a joke, but there was something underneath, something testing, like she was waiting to see how I'd react. Maybe, I said, but I didn't believe it, and I think she knew. Brian pulled me aside at the garage 3 days later. I don't trust her, he said, handing me a socket wrench as I worked under a '98 Camry with transmission problems. You don't trust anyone. I trusted Lee. He paused. You ever gonna tell me what happened there? I froze under the car. Nothing happened. Bull, something went down between you two. I saw the way you looked after she dumped you. She didn't dump me. We weren't together. Whatever, man. Point is, this Ann chick. She appeared out of nowhere, right after that fortune-telling thing, and suddenly she's practically living with you. Brian crouched down to meet my eyes. That's not coincidence. That's a plan. A plan for what? I don't know, but something's off. I slid out from under the car, wiping my hands on a rag. Brian wasn't wrong. Ann asked a lot of questions about my family, my business, my plans for the future. But whenever I asked about her life, she deflected, changed the subject, kissed me to shut me up. That night, I drove past Molly's apartment in Arlington, just to see. Ann's car was parked outside. I sat there for 10 minutes, watching the lights in Molly's window, feeling like an idiot, like a paranoid ex-boyfriend. Like someone who'd lost the ability to trust anyone. Finally, I pulled out my phone and texted Molly directly. Is Anne reporting back to you? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Her response came 30 seconds later. Anne makes her own choices. I don't control her, but be careful, she leaves when she's ready. I stared at those words for a long time. She leaves when she's ready. What the hell did that mean? Exactly 3 weeks after our first night together, Anne sat me down at my kitchen table. December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Outside, it was sleeting, that miserable DC weather that couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or snow. We need to talk, she said. I'd been expecting this. Somehow, I'd known it was coming. Okay, this has been fun. Anne's voice was calm, rehearsed, but we both know it's not going anywhere. Do we, Patrick? She reached across the table and took my hand. I was curious about you. Molly talked about you like you were special, different. I wanted to see for myself. And you are special. Her smile was almost sad. But you're not mine. Your heart's somewhere else, has been since before we met. Lee, she was talking about Lee. Could she tell? Could everyone tell? I don't know what you mean, I lied. Yes, you do. Anne stood up, grabbing her jacket from the back of the chair. Don't worry, I'm not angry. I got what I came for. What was that? She paused at the door. Confirmation that Molly was right about you. Before I could ask what that meant, she was gone. I sat at my kitchen table, listening to the sleet tap against the windows, feeling relieved and confused and somehow completely empty. Then my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number at first, then I recognized it. Lee's number. Need help, PLS, come now? I stared at those 5 words. 6 weeks since she'd ended things. 6 weeks of silence. Don't go, the smart part of my brain said. She made her choice. Let her deal with it. But my hands were already grabbing my keys. Lee opened the door, and I knew immediately something was terribly wrong. She was doubled over, one hand braced against the door frame, the other clutching her stomach. Her face was gray, sweaty, her breathing came in short, painful gasps. Patrick? Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, I didn't know who else to call. What's wrong? What happened? She tried to answer, but a wave of pain hit her. She gasped, nearly falling. I caught her, held her up. And that's when I felt it. Her stomach, swollen, round, pregnant, she was pregnant. Lee, what? Call 911, she gasped. Please, something's wrong with the baby. The baby. The baby. My hands were shaking as I dialed. My voice was steady somehow as I gave the address. The dispatcher asked questions I barely heard. Lee moaned in my arms. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Felt like 7 hours. The paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher, asking questions, checking vitals. I climbed in beside her, holding her hand, my mind refusing to do the math that my heart already knew. Ma'am, one of the paramedics said, how far along are you? Lee's eyes met mine. I saw fear. Guilt. Something that looked like resignation. 7 months, she whispered. 7 months. September, October, November. Our affair started in October. She ended things in mid-November, right around when she would have found out she was pregnant. The paramedic was talking, asking more questions, but I couldn't hear anything over the roaring in my ears. 7 months pregnant, with my child, and she never told me. Georgetown University Hospital. December 23, 2004. 11:47 p.m. I sat in the waiting room for 5 hours, doing calculations I didn't want to do. The chairs were orange plastic, uncomfortable as hell. A TV mounted in the corner played CNN on mute, something about the tsunami in Southeast Asia. A vending machine hummed in the corner, offering stale chips and flat soda. I didn't eat, didn't drink, just sat there, counting backward. 7 months pregnant meant conception around May, but our affair was September through November. The math didn't work, unless I was wrong about when it started, unless she'd been pregnant before we got together, unless the baby wasn't mine. That thought should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like being punched in the gut. At 4:52 a.m., a doctor in green scrubs approached me. Mr. Sullivan, I stood up so fast I got dizzy. Is she okay? Is the baby? Mrs. Reyes is stable. The baby is fine. The doctor, young, tired, a name tag that read doctor, Patterson, gestured for me to sit. She's been asking for you. but before you go in, I need to prepare you for some news." "What news?" "Mrs. Reyes has asked me to share her medical information with you." Normally, I wouldn't, but she was quite insistent. Dr. Patterson sat in the chair beside me. "Are you the father?" I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know," I finally admitted. "She never told me she was pregnant." The doctor nodded, like this was something he saw every day. "Maybe it was. The pregnancy is progressing normally. 7 months along, which means we're looking at a February delivery. Early, but manageable." "Okay, that's good. There's more." Dr. Patterson's expression shifted, something careful entering his eyes. "Mrs. Reyes has stage IV ovarian cancer, advanced, aggressive, terminal." The word hit me like a sledgehammer. Terminal. "She was diagnosed in August," the doctor continued. "Before the pregnancy, she was offered treatment, aggressive chemotherapy that might have extended her life by a year, possibly more. She refused." "Why?" "Because the treatment would have terminated the pregnancy. She chose to carry the baby to term instead." I couldn't breathe. The waiting room was spinning. "How long does she have?" "Weeks, perhaps days after delivery." Dr. Patterson put a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, she wanted you to know before you went in." Lee's hospital room was small and beige and smelled like antiseptic. She was propped up in bed, monitors beeping softly beside her. Her face was pale against the white pillows, her hair limp and unwashed, but her eyes were clear. Alert, resigned. "Patrick," her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." I stood in the doorway, unable to move. "It's mine," I said, not a question, a statement. "Yes." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I found out a week before I ended things. That's why I pushed you away. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From knowing I was going to be a father, from having a say in this, from this." She gestured at herself, the hospital bed, the monitors, her swollen belly. "From watching me die, from raising a baby alone. You're 28 years old, Patrick. You have your whole life. Don't." My voice came out harsher than I intended. "Don't tell me what my life should be. You don't get to make that choice for me." I know I don't." She was sobbing now, ugly and raw. "I was scared. I was dying and I was scared and I didn't know what to do." I made myself walk to the bed, made myself sit in the plastic chair beside her, made myself take her hand, even though I wanted to scream. "Tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning, no more lies." She nodded, wiping her eyes with her free hand. "I was diagnosed in August, before you and Isabel broke up." "Before any of it?" Her voice was small, tired. "The doctor said I had maybe a year with aggressive treatment. Chemo, radiation, the works. Why didn't you do it?" "I was going to. I had an appointment scheduled for September 15th. She laughed bitterly. "Then you showed up at my door with Isabel's garbage bags and everything changed." I remembered that day. Her kitchen, her coffee. The way she'd held me while I cried. "I took you to bed because I was dying," Lee continued. "I hadn't been with anyone in 23 years. I was terrified and lonely, and you were there, and you were kind, and I wanted to feel alive one more time before everything ended. And then you got pregnant." "And then I got pregnant." She shook her head. "I didn't think it was possible." I was 46. I'd been told I couldn't. After Isabel, there were complications. I never thought. But it happened. It happened. Her hand tightened on mine. By the time I found out, I was too far along for the cancer treatment to work anyway. The doctor said I could terminate and maybe buy myself 6 months, or I could carry to term and... She trailed off. "And die." "Yes." The word hung in the air between us. "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice broke. "I could have been there, I could have helped." "Because I was going to give her up." Lee's eyes met mine. "For adoption. I was going to have her, hand her to someone who could raise her properly, and then let the cancer take me. You would never have known. You would have moved on, found someone else, lived your life. That's not your choice to make, Lee. I know that now." She was crying again. "Isabel came to see me yesterday, told me she ran into you at the grocery store. She said you looked like a ghost, said you'd been miserable for weeks." I thought about the past 6 weeks. The drinking, the 16-hour workdays, the empty apartment. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Lee whispered. I thought I was saving you from all this pain. Instead, I just made it worse. We sat in silence for a long time. The monitors beeped. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. Finally, I spoke. I'm going to marry you. Lee's head snapped up. What? Our daughter needs a legal father, a name, a family. I squeezed her hand. I'm going to marry you, Lee, and I'm going to raise our baby. No adoption, no strangers. Me? Patrick, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. I looked at her, this woman I'd loved in secret for 6 weeks, this woman who was dying, this woman who was carrying my child. Let me do this right, please. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Isabel showed up an hour later. She burst into the room like a tornado, wild-eyed, mascara smeared, smelling like cheap vodka. Mom, she saw me and froze. What the hell are you doing here? Isabel, Lee started. No, don't Isabel me. She whirled on me, finger jabbing at my chest. Why are you here? What right do you have to? The baby is mine. Silence. Isabel's face went through about 15 emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, horror, disgust, fury. You're lying. I'm not. You and my mother? Her voice rose to a shriek. You were sleeping with my mother? Isabel, please. Lee tried to sit up, wincing in pain. How long were you two? Oh my God. Isabel backed away, hands over her mouth. I'm going to be sick. Isabel, listen to me. No. She was screaming now, hospital staff appearing in the doorway. You're disgusting. Both of you, my own mother. While I was trying to get you back, you were the one cheating, I said quietly. Remember, you and Devin. You threw away 2 years for a married man who dropped you the second his wife found out. Isabel slapped me, hard enough to snap my head sideways, hard enough to leave a handprint. Don't you dare. Her voice dropped to a hiss. Don't you dare act like you're better than me. You slept with my dying mother, you got her pregnant. And I'm going to marry her. That stopped her cold. What? I'm going to marry your mother. Our daughter is going to have my name. And you, I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You can either be part of this family, or you can stay away. But if you ever show up drunk to see your mother again, if you ever upset her while she's fighting for every minute she has left, I will personally make sure you never see that baby. Do you understand? Isabel's eyes were wide, terrified. She turned and fled. Brian appeared in the doorway a minute later. I'd called him from the waiting room. So, he said, looking from me to Leigh and back. When's the wedding? We got married on January 29th, 2005, 3 days before Lee's due date. In the hospital chapel, with fluorescent lights and plastic flowers and a minister who'd done this 100 times before. Brian was my best man. He wore his only suit, the one he'd bought for his grandmother's funeral, and kept making jokes to keep me from falling apart. You know, he whispered as we waited for Lee's wheelchair to arrive, when I said you needed to find someone new, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Shut up. I'm just saying, most guys go to a bar, maybe try online dating. You went straight for, Brian, I swear to God. He grinned. Love you too, man. The chapel doors opened. Katie Donovan, a woman I'd met in the waiting room 2 days earlier, whose daughter Emma was in pediatrics with a respiratory infection, pushed Lee's wheelchair down the narrow aisle. Katie had volunteered to serve as witness when she heard our story. Everyone deserves someone in their corner, she'd said. Lee wore a white nightgown the nurses had helped her change into. Her hair was brushed, her lips had a touch of color. She looked beautiful, fragile, like something that might break if you held it too hard. I walked to meet her, taking her hand. Hey, I said. Hey yourself. Her voice was weak, but her smile was real. You sure about this? Never been more sure of anything. The ceremony was short, 5 minutes, maybe less. Simple vows to have and to hold in sickness and in health. The minister spoke about love and commitment and the mysterious ways God works. I said, I do. Lee said, I do. Brian handed me the ring, a simple gold band I'd bought that morning from a jewelry store near the hospital. And just like that, Lee Reyes became Lee Sullivan. I kissed her gently, tasting the salt of her tears. When I looked up, I saw a figure standing at the back of the chapel. White hair, snow white like something out of a fairy tale, familiar features. Molly. She was holding a bouquet of flowers, white roses and baby's breath. She met my eyes, nodded once, and set the flowers by the door. Then she was gone. By the time I turned back to Lee, the moment had passed. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Molly had said at the carnival. Your second wife, winter in her hair. Second wife, which meant Lee. I pushed the thought away. Focused on the woman in front of me, my wife, the mother of my child. I love you, I said. It was the first time I'd said it out loud. I love you too, she whispered back, and for one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. Gabriella Reyes Sullivan came into the world on February 2, 2005, at 3:47 in the morning. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair, lungs that worked perfectly based on the screaming. I was there for all 12 hours of labor, held Lee's hand through every contraction, watched the monitors spike and dip, listened to her curse and cry and beg for it to be over. You're doing great, I kept saying. You're almost there, just a little more. I hate you, she gasped at one point. I hate you so much right now. I know, I love you too. And then, finally, at 3:47 a.m., a cry. The doctor held up a tiny, squirming, red-faced creature covered in blood and other things I didn't want to think about. It's a girl, he announced. I cut the cord with shaking hands. Watched the nurses clean her up, wrap her in a pink blanket, place her in Lee's arms. Lee was crying, I was crying. The nurses were pretending not to cry. Gabriella, Lee whispered, looking down at our daughter. Her name is Gabriella. Gabriella Sullivan, I agreed. Gabby for short. Lee looked up at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't name. She's beautiful, Patrick. She's perfect. I looked at my daughter, and felt something crack open in my chest. A love so big, so overwhelming that I couldn't breathe around it. Yeah, I managed. She is. Lee held Gabby twice. Once after the birth, for about an hour until the nurses insisted she rest. And once more the next morning, when she knew it was the last time. I was there for both. The second time, Lee's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the bottle. Her skin had gone gray overnight. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Take care of her, she whispered, not looking at me. Her eyes were fixed on Gabby's face, memorizing every detail. Don't let her forget me. Show her pictures. Tell her stories. Tell her. Her voice broke. Tell her I loved her more than anything, more than my own life. She'll know, I promised. I'll make sure she knows. Lee kissed Gabby's forehead, handed her to me. And Patrick? Yeah, don't let Isabel raise her. Her eyes met mine. Please, I know she's my daughter, but she's not. She's not ready. She's not capable. Promise me. I promise. Lee nodded, closed her eyes. Let out a long, slow breath. I sat beside her bed for the next 18 hours, Gabby in my arms, watching my wife slip away. She died at 11:23 p.m. on February 3, 2005, 43 hours after giving birth. I was holding her hand when she went. 1 minute she was there, weak, fading, but there. The next, she was gone, like a candle blown out. The monitors flatlined. Nurses rushed in. Someone tried to take Gabby from my arms. I don't remember what happened next, just fragments. Voices, forms to sign, someone asking about funeral arrangements. Brian appeared at some point, took Gabby while I sat in a plastic chair and stared at the wall. I'm so sorry, man, he said. I'm so sorry. I didn't answer, couldn't answer. My wife was dead. My daughter was alive. And I had no idea what to do next. The funeral was small. Rosie's diner closed for 2 hours so the staff could attend. A dozen women in pink uniforms and sensible shoes crying into tissues. Lee had worked there for 23 years. She'd been the only family some of them had. Isabel came, sat in the back row, didn't speak to me. I held Gabby through the whole service, this tiny bundle of life at a ceremony for death. The minister talked about Lee's dedication, her sacrifice, her love for her daughters. Daughters, plural. I looked at Isabel, wondering if she'd ever understand what her mother had given up. Probably not. After the burial, Katie Donovan found me in the parking lot. I don't know if you remember me, she started. From the hospital, I remember, you were our witness. Right. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable. Look, I know this is weird timing, but I wanted you to have my number. My daughter Emma goes to a daycare center near here. They're good people, and you're going to need help. She pressed a piece of paper into my hand. Single parents have to stick together. I looked at the number. Looked at Katie, brown hair, tired eyes, a smile that had seen too much but kept going anyway. Thank you, I said. Don't mention it. She squeezed my arm. You're not alone in this, Patrick, remember that. That night I brought Gabby home. My apartment had never felt so small, so empty, so completely unprepared for a baby. No crib, no bottles, no diapers, no clue. Gabby screamed for 4 straight hours. I tried everything, feeding her, changing her, rocking her, singing to her. Nothing worked. At 4 a.m., I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, my daughter wailing in my arms, and I lost it. I can't do this, I sobbed into the phone. My mother's voice, sleepy and confused, on the other end. Mom, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. She won't stop crying, and I don't know what she needs, and Lee's gone, and I can't. Patrick, listen to me. My mother's voice, sharp and clear now. I'm coming, first thing in the morning. Hold on until then. Can you do that? I don't know. Yes, you can. You're a Sullivan. We don't quit. A pause. Now tell that baby you love her. Over and over, even if she can't understand, even if she won't stop crying, tell her anyway. I looked down at Gabby, her face red and scrunched, her tiny fists waving. I love you, I whispered. I love you, I love you, I love you. She kept crying, but somehow saying the words out loud made me believe I might survive this. My mother stayed for 3 weeks. Margaret Sullivan, 62 years old, widowed, retired from 30 years of teaching middle school English. She showed up at my apartment with 2 suitcases and a look that said she wasn't leaving until things were under control. First things first, she announced, surveying the chaos. We need a crib, bottles, formula, diapers, a changing table. And for the love of God, Patrick, when's the last time you ate a vegetable? I don't remember. That's what I thought. She took Gabby from my arms with practiced ease. Go take a shower. You smell like sour milk and desperation. I went. Over the next 3 weeks, Mom taught me everything. How to hold a bottle at the right angle. How to burp a baby. How to change a diaper without getting peed on. How to recognize the difference between a hungry cry, a tired cry, and an I'm just being dramatic cry. She's got your stubbornness, Mom observed one morning, watching Gabby refuse to nap. God help you. Thanks, Mom. And your father's eyes. Her voice softened. He would have loved being a grandfather. Dad had been gone 2 years. Lung cancer. Non-smoker, which seemed like the cruelest joke the universe ever played. I inherited the garage and a pile of debt and the constant feeling that I wasn't good enough to fill his shoes. He'd probably be horrified by this situation, I said. Oh, he'd be furious. You know how traditional he was. Mom smiled. But he'd have loved that little girl anyway, just like you do. After 3 weeks, Mom went back to Baltimore. You've got this, she said at the door, hugging me tight. Call me every day, send pictures, and Patrick? Yeah, it gets easier, not easy, but easier, I promise. I watched her car disappear down the street and tried to believe her. I went back to work after 6 weeks. The garage wasn't going to run itself, and my savings account was bleeding out faster than I could count. Martinez, Dad's old partner, had been holding things together, but he was 60 years old with a bad back. He couldn't do it forever. The hardest part was daycare. I found a place called Little Steps Learning Center, run by a woman named Mrs. Garcia, who'd been in the business for 30 years. They had an infant spot. The cost was $1,200 a month. My rent was $900. I did the math about 15 times, looking for some way to make it work. There wasn't one, but what choice did I have? She's a beautiful baby, Mrs. Garcia said on Gabby's first day, taking her from my arms. Don't worry, Mr. Sullivan, we'll take good care of her. Walking out of that building without my daughter was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Harder than Lee's funeral. Harder than those first sleepless nights. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, telling myself to breathe. Then I drove to work. At drop-off and pickup, I was the only single father. The other parents were all mothers, some married, some single, but all women. They looked at me like I was an alien species, some with pity, some with suspicion. a few with something that might have been contempt. "Brave of you," one woman said during my second week. It didn't sound like a compliment. "I don't have a choice," I said. She nodded like that confirmed something she'd already believed. The single mothers formed a clique. They stood together in the mornings, exchanging gossip, comparing notes on sleep schedules and teething and pediatricians. I stood apart, invisible, waiting for the door to open so I could get to work. Then Katie Donovan showed up. Her daughter Emma was 2.5 now, recovered from the respiratory infection that had put her in the hospital. Katie had transferred to this daycare because it was closer to her job at Save Mart. "Patrick," she waved from across the parking lot. "I thought that was your truck." I felt something loosen in my chest. A familiar face. Someone who didn't look at me like a freak. "Katie, hey. How are you holding up?" She fell into step beside me, Emma balanced on her hip. "Stupid question, I know, but I've been thinking about you. I'm surviving, barely. That's all any of us are doing," she grinned. "Listen, the mom mafia here can be brutal. Stick with me. Outcasts have to stick together." "Outcasts? Single parents. We're like a different species to these women." Katie lowered her voice. "Half of them think we're competition for their husbands. The other half think we're cautionary tales. Either way, they don't want us in their club." I laughed, first real laugh in weeks. "Okay," I said. "Outcasts together." We exchanged numbers that day. By the end of the month, Katie had become my lifeline. Through Katie, I got pulled into a group of single parents. Saturday mornings at Rock Creek Park. Kids in the sandbox while adults sat on benches and compared war stories. There was Katie, of course. Diane, a divorced accountant with twin boys who never stopped fighting. Rosa, a young mom whose husband was deployed overseas. Janet, a grandmother raising her grandson after her daughter's overdose. And me, the only man. The conversations were educational. "I'm telling you, nipple cream is a game changer," Diane was saying one Saturday while I focused very hard on watching Gabby eat sand. "My boobs were like hamburger meat the first month." "At least yours went back to normal after," Rosa said. "Mine are pointing at the floor now." "Girls, please," Janet gestured toward me. "We've got company." "Oh, Patrick doesn't mind. Do you, Patrick?" Diane grinned at me. "He's basically one of us now." "I'm trying really hard not to hear any of this," I said. They laughed. I'd gotten used to being the entertainment. But honestly, I liked being part of the group. They accepted me in a way I hadn't expected, asked my opinion on things. Included me in their text chains and coffee runs and desperate late night, "Is this normal?" phone calls. One Saturday, Diane leaned over while the kids were playing. "I could use a man around," she said, her hand landing on my knee. "You interested?" "Diane, don't say no just yet. Think about it. 2 incomes, shared childcare, regular sex." She raised her eyebrows. "I'm not asking for love, Patrick, just practicality." I removed her hand gently. "I appreciate the offer, really, but I'm not looking for anything, just trying to keep my daughter alive." Diane shrugged, not offended. "Can't blame a girl for trying." Gabby's first year passed in a blur of exhaustion and wonder. I documented everything. Photos of her first smile, her first tooth, her first time rolling over. Videos of her laughing at my terrible peekaboo faces. Journal entries at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep and needed to remember why I was doing this. "Your mama loved you so much," I told her every night before bed. "She gave up everything for you. Don't ever forget that." Gabby would stare at me with those big brown eyes, Lee's eyes, and grab at my nose or my glasses or whatever was in reach. She took her first steps at 11 months, said her first word, Dada, at 10 months. Started sleeping through the night at 9 months, which felt like winning the lottery. I was doing it. Somehow, against all odds, I was doing it. Isabel visited twice that year. The first time was in April. She showed up unannounced, smelling like wine, demanding to see her sister. "She's your half-sister," I said, not opening the door all the way. "And you're drunk." "I'm not drunk, I had 2 glasses." "Isabel, go home. She's my mother's baby. I have a right to see her." I looked at this woman I'd once planned to marry. She looked terrible, thinner than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes, a desperate quality in her voice. "Come back sober," I said. "Then we'll talk." I closed the door. The second visit was in October. She was sober this time, but barely. Hungover, probably. She held Gabby for 20 minutes, cried, and then left without saying goodbye. I didn't hear from her again until the letter. On the anniversary of Lee's death, I took Gabby to the cemetery. February 3rd, 2006. A cold, gray day, wind cutting through my jacket. Gabby bundled in so many layers she could barely move. I sat by Lee's grave with my daughter in my lap and told her everything. "Your grandmother was brave," I said. "She was dying, and she knew it, and she chose to have you anyway. She chose your life over hers. That's the most important thing I want you to know." Gabby grabbed a handful of dead grass and tried to eat it. I gently pried it from her fingers. "I'm doing my best, Lee. I hope it's enough. I hope—" My voice cracked. "I hope wherever you are, you can see her. She's beautiful. She's perfect. She's everything you hoped she'd be." I sat there until my ass went numb from the cold ground. Then I stood, brushed off my jeans, and turned to leave. That's when I saw her. A woman standing at the cemetery gates. White hair like snow, bright against the gray winter sky. Molly. She raised her hand in a small wave, nodded once, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, Molly's words from the carnival echoing in my memory. "Your second wife, winter in her hair." I looked down at Gabby, looked back at the empty gate. Maybe the prophecy wasn't finished yet. Maybe it was just beginning. Summer 2006. 18 months since Lee died. 18 months of diapers and formula and sleepless nights and first steps and first words and a love so fierce it scared me sometimes. Gabby was walking now, talking sort of. Dada was her favorite word, followed by no and juice and something that might have been kitty but could have been anything. She was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was exhausted. "You need to get out," Brian said for the 15th time that month. We were at the garage. He'd stopped by after his shift at O'Malley's, bringing beer and unsolicited advice. "Seriously, Patrick. When's the last time you did something that wasn't work or baby stuff? I took Gabby to the zoo last weekend. That's baby stuff. She liked the penguins. Patrick." Brian set down his beer. "I'm not asking, I'm telling. Thursday night, quiz night at O'Malley's, you're coming. I don't have a babysitter." "Katie already said she'd watch Gabby." I looked at him. "You called Katie." "Someone had to. You've turned into a hermit man, a hermit who smells like baby powder." "I do not." I sniffed my shirt. "Okay, maybe a little." "Thursday," Brian repeated. No excuses. Thursday night, O'Malley's pub, same neon signs, same sticky floors, same smell of beer and fried food that somehow felt like comfort. I'd forgotten what it was like to be somewhere without a diaper bag. Without constantly scanning for hazards. Without that low-level anxiety that something might be wrong with Gabby. It felt strange, almost guilty. "Relax," Brian said, sliding a Guinness across the table. "Katie's got it handled. She's raised Emma on her own for 3 years. She can handle one night with your kid." "I know, check your phone one more time and I'm confiscating it." I put the phone face down on the table. Took a breath. Tried to remember how to be a person instead of just a parent. The quiz started at 8. Our team was Brian, me, 2 guys from his softball league named Marcus and Pete, and a woman named Sandra who apparently held the pub record for consecutive wins. We were halfway through the second round, geography, my worst subject, when someone at the bar caught my attention. "Check out that hair," Pete muttered, nodding toward a woman ordering drinks. "Is that pink?" I looked up. Pink hair. Bright, shocking, cotton candy pink. My heart stopped. The carnival, the prophecy, waking up in her apartment 2 years ago with the worst headache of my life. But wait, her hair had been red at the carnival, and white at the wedding, and white at the cemetery. I scanned the room, pulse pounding, and there she was, standing by the jukebox flipping through songs, white hair now, pure white like fresh snow. She was wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater, nothing flashy, but she stood out anyway. She always had, Molly Brennan. As if she felt my gaze, she looked up. Our eyes met across the crowded bar. She smiled. "You're staring," Brian said. "I know her." "The white-haired lady? From where?" I was already standing. "I'll be right back." I crossed the bar on legs that felt unsteady. Molly watched me approach, her expression calm, patient, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Molly, Patrick. She said my name like a prayer, like a promise. I was wondering when you'd find me again. Your hair changes with my mood. She tucked a white strand behind her ear. It's been winter for a while now. I didn't know what that meant, didn't care. I saw you, I said, at the hospital chapel, when I married Lee, and at the cemetery on the anniversary. I know. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you come talk to me? Molly's smile faded slightly. Because you weren't ready, you were grieving, building a life with your daughter. The last thing you needed was some strange woman showing up with cryptic predictions. So you just watched from a distance? I waited. Her eyes met mine. I'm good at waiting. The jukebox clicked, and an old Johnny Cash song started playing. Ring of Fire? The universe had a sick sense of humor. Can we talk? I asked. Somewhere quieter? I'd like that. We found a booth in the back corner, away from the quiz night chaos. I texted Brian that I'd be a minute. He sent back a string of question marks and a thumbs up. Your prophecy, I started. At the carnival, the woman with fire in her hair, the marriage, the daughter. It all happened, Molly finished. Most of it anyway. Most of it. She wrapped her hands around her water glass. I predicted you'd receive unexpected money, an inheritance or windfall. That never happened, did it? I thought about my bank account, the daycare bills, the constant juggling. No, it didn't. The sight isn't perfect, Patrick. I see possibilities, not certainties. Some paths shift, some don't. She looked down. I didn't see the cancer. I knew there would be grief. I saw shadows around your first wife, but I didn't know she was dying. I didn't know you'd lose her so fast. Would you have told me if you'd known? I don't know. Her voice was honest. Raw. That's the hardest part of what I can do, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Knowing that sometimes the truth helps and sometimes it destroys. We sat in silence for a moment. The Johnny Cash song ended. Something by the Eagles started. Tell me about you, I said finally. Not your visions, you. Molly looked surprised. What do you want to know? Everything. Where you grew up, how you became a teacher, why you keep changing your hair color. She laughed, a real laugh, warm and unexpected. That's a lot of questions. I've got time. We talked for 2 hours. She grew up in Boston, working-class neighborhood. Her father was a firefighter, her mother a school secretary. She had 2 older brothers who teased her relentlessly about her weird feelings. The sight started when I was 12, she said. I knew my grandmother was going to die 3 days before it happened. I told my mom. She didn't believe me, thought I was being dramatic. Then Nana had a stroke on Tuesday. That must have been hard. My family thought I was cursed. Still do, probably. My brothers stopped talking to me. My parents sent me to a therapist who tried to convince me I was making it up. She shrugged. I moved to D.C. after college. Fresh start, teaching job at Jefferson Elementary. I don't tell people about the site anymore, except at fundraisers where they think it's a party trick. And the hair? I like transformation. She touched a white strand. It reminds me that nothing stays the same forever, even the hard things, even the grief. I understood that more than she knew. I should get back, I said reluctantly. Katie's watching Gabby and I've been gone too long. I know Katie. Molly smiled at my surprise. We went to college together for a year before I transferred. She reached out after Lee's funeral, asked if there was anything in your future that might help. What did you tell her? To be patient, that good things were coming. That you just needed time. I stood up, then hesitated. Would you, if you're not busy, would you want to meet Gabby? She's probably asleep by now, but I'd love that, Molly said. I've been wanting to meet her since I saw you at the cemetery. We walked back to my apartment. It was a warm night for D.C. Late June, humidity thick as soup, the smell of honeysuckle from someone's garden. Molly walked beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel her presence. I need to tell you something, I said as we turned onto my street. I'm not looking for anything. Romantically, Gabby's my whole life right now. I don't have room for Patrick. Molly stopped walking. I'm not here to pressure you. I'm not here to fulfill some prophecy or push you into something you're not ready for. Then why are you here? She considered the question. Because I've been watching you for 18 months, watching you become a father, watching you build a life out of tragedy. And I think," she paused, "I think you might be the most remarkable person I've ever met." I didn't know what to say to that. "Let's just start with coffee," she said, "and maybe introductions to your daughter. The rest can come later, or not at all, whatever you need." We started walking again. Katie was on the couch when we came in, reading a paperback with Gabby's baby monitor on the coffee table. "Finally." She jumped up, grinning. "I was starting to think Brian kidnapped you." Then she saw Molly and her grin got wider. Oh, about time." "Katie, don't Katie me." She was already grabbing her purse. "I've been waiting for you two to figure this out for months." "You've been what?" "Molly and I talk." Katie winked at Molly. "She's been asking about you since the funeral." I told her you needed time. Looks like time's up. She was out the door before I could respond, calling "have fun" over her shoulder. I turned to Molly. "Did everyone know about this except me?" "Just Katie, and she only knew I was interested." "Not," Molly gestured vaguely, "not the rest of it. The prophecy stuff, that stays between us, always has." She looked toward the hallway. "Can I see her, Gabby?" I led her to Gabby's room. My daughter was asleep in her toddler bed, the one I'd bought when she outgrew the crib last month. Her dark hair, Lee's hair, was spread across the pillow. One arm was wrapped around a stuffed elephant named Peanut. She was perfect. "She looks like you," Molly whispered. "Everyone says she looks like her mother. Around the eyes, maybe. But the stubborn set of her jaw, that's all you." We stood there for a long moment, watching Gabby breathe. The nightlight cast soft shadows on the wall, stars and moons, a gift from Katie. "Thank you," Molly said finally, "for letting me see her." "Thank you for, I don't know, being patient, I guess." She kissed my cheek. Soft, brief, just a whisper of warmth. "I'll see you again soon," she said. "When you're ready." Then she was gone. I stood in my daughter's doorway for a long time after, thinking about prophecies and patience and the strange ways life unfolds. For the first time in 18 months, I felt something that might have been hope. Dating Molly was different from anything I'd experienced before. With Isabel, everything had been intense, hot and fast, and ultimately destructive. With Lee, it was secret and desperate and tinged with guilt. With Anne, it was mechanical, almost transactional. With Molly, it was easy. We started slow. Coffee dates while Gabby was at daycare. Walks in Rock Creek Park on Saturday mornings, Gabby in her stroller, pointing at squirrels and dogs and anything else that caught her attention. "Duck," she'd shout. "Duck. That's a pigeon, sweetheart." "Duck." Molly would laugh, that warm sound that made something loosen in my chest every time I heard it. "She's got your confidence," Molly said one morning, watching Gabby toddle after a very alarmed squirrel. "Absolutely certain she's right, even when she's wrong." "I'm not like that. You told a fortune teller her prophecy was quite a performance. To her face. That's different." I learned more about her life those first weeks. She'd been teaching 4th grade for 7 years. Loved it, had a special talent for the troubled kids, the ones other teachers wrote off. "They remind me of myself," she explained. "I was a weird kid, seeing things no one else could see, knowing things I shouldn't know. Teachers thought I was lying or crazy. I want to be the adult I needed back then." She volunteered at a hospice on weekends, had for years. "I know when people are close to the end," she said quietly. "I can feel it, so I spend time with them, read to them, hold their hands. It feels like that's what the site is for, you know? Not party tricks or carnival tents, being present for people when they need it most." I thought about Lee's final hours, about holding her hand as she slipped away. "Yeah," I said, "I know." 3 months after our first date, Molly called me in a panic. "My building got sold," she said. "New owners are raising rent 40%. I can't afford it anymore, not on a teacher's salary." I didn't hesitate. "Move in with me." Silence on the other end. "Patrick, we've only been dating 3 months. And I've known you for 2 years. You saved me from Devin's party. You predicted my future. You waited 18 months to give me space." I took a breath. "Move in with me, Molly, with us." "Are you sure? What about Gabby?" "Gabby adores you. You're the first thing she asks about every morning." "Where Momo come play?" Molly laughed through what sounded like tears. "She calls me Momo?" "Started last week. Wouldn't stop until I promised to call you. Another long pause, then, okay, yes, I'll move in. She moved in on a Saturday in October. Her stuff fit in my apartment easier than I expected. She didn't own much. Books mostly, teaching supplies, a shocking amount of hair dye in various colors. I might go back to pink someday, she said, catching me staring at the collection. When winter ends. What does that mean? She just smiled. Gabby was thrilled. She followed Molly everywhere, helping unpack boxes by removing everything Molly put away and redistributing it across the floor. Gabby, sweetie, those are Momo's books. My books. No, they're my books. I caught Molly's eye. She was trying not to laugh. Your daughter is a tyrant. She gets it from her mother. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Molly's expression softened. Tell me about Lee, not the sad parts, the good parts. So I did. While Gabby napped and we unpacked boxes, I told her about Lee's laugh, her terrible coffee. The way she danced in her kitchen when she thought no one was watching. She sounds wonderful, Molly said. She was. She was also complicated and scared and made decisions that weren't fair to me. I shrugged, but she gave me Gabby. I can forgive a lot for that. I know, Molly touched my face. That's why I love you. It was the first time either of us had said the word. I kissed her, long and slow and full of promise. I love you too, I said when we broke apart, in case that wasn't clear. It was clear, but it's nice to hear. I did something I'm not proud of after she moved in. I asked Brian to look into her. Just a background check, I said, unable to meet his eyes. Make sure there's nothing I'm missing. Brian stared at me. You serious? I've been wrong before, about Isabel, I stopped. I just need to be sure for Gabby's sake. He sighed. Fine, but if she finds out, I'm telling her it was your idea. Fair enough. A week later, he came by the garage with results. She's clean, good credit, no criminal record, never even had a parking ticket. Brian handed me a folder I didn't open. Her students love her. I talked to a couple parents from her school. The hospice she volunteers at, they call her an angel. Relief flooded through me. And guilt. She's exactly who she says she is, Patrick. You hit the jackpot. That night, I told Molly what I'd done. She wasn't angry. That's what killed me, she wasn't angry. I'm glad, she said simply. You've been hurt before. Checking shows you're smart, not paranoid. You're not upset? Patrick, if you'd asked for my blood type and social security number, I would have given them to you. I have nothing to hide. She took my hands. Trust takes time, especially when it's been broken before. Do what you need to do to feel safe. I pulled her close and held on tight. A few weeks later, I ran into Devin. I was filling up at a gas station in Arlington, the Shell on Washington Boulevard, when a voice behind me said my name. Patrick? Patrick Sullivan? I turned. I barely recognized him. Devin Callahan had been handsome once. Confident, the kind of guy who walked into a room like he owned it. Now he looked like someone who'd been chewed up and spit out by life. Thin, unshaven, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in days. His eyes had that hollow look I'd seen in men at the hospice Molly worked at, men who'd given up. Devin? Man, He couldn't meet my eyes. I heard about Lee, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything coming from me, but how'd you hear about Lee? Isabel told me. We talked a few times after everything fell apart. He laughed bitterly. Before she stopped returning my calls. I should have felt satisfaction. This man had drugged me, slept with my girlfriend for 2 months, destroyed his own marriage for a fling. Instead, I felt nothing. What happened to you? I asked. Linda divorced me, took everything, the house, the car, the retirement account. She called my boss, told him I'd been using company cards to pay for hotel rooms. Devin's voice cracked. I got fired, blacklisted from the industry. No one will hire me. So what are you doing now? Selling used cars. Commission only. I live in a studio apartment in Manassas. He gestured at a battered Honda Civic that had seen better decades. That's my ride now. 2 years ago, he'd driven a BMW, bragged about it constantly. Karma, I thought, but the word felt hollow. I'm sorry, Devin said again, for all of it, the party, the drugs, Isabel, everything. I finished filling my tank, put the nozzle back. Take care of yourself, Devin. I drove away without looking back. That night after Gabby was asleep, Molly and I sat on the couch with the TV on mute. "I saw Devin today," I said. "The one who drugged you?" "Yeah." I told her about the gas station, the divorce, the used car lot in Manassas. Molly listened without interrupting. "How do you feel?" she asked when I finished. I thought I'd be happy, or satisfied, or something. I shook my head, but I just felt empty, like looking at a stranger. "That's growth." Molly curled into my side. "The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. You've moved past him. When did you get so wise?" "I see the future, remember? Wisdom comes with the territory." I laughed. She smiled. And somewhere in the middle of that moment, I realized this was it. This was the life I wanted. Later that night, Gabby had a nightmare. I was half asleep when I heard her crying, that sharp, terrified wail that every parent knows. I was out of bed before I was fully awake. Molly was right behind me. We found Gabby sitting up in her toddler bed, tears streaming down her face, reaching for us. "Dada, Momo, bad dream, bad dream?" I scooped her up. Molly rubbed her back. Between us, Gabby slowly calmed down. "What scared you, sweetheart?" "Monster," she sniffled. "Big monster with teeth." "There's no monster," Molly said gently. "See, we checked. No monsters in your room." "Stay." Gabby grabbed both our hands. "Dada and Momo stay." We looked at each other. "Okay," I said. "We'll stay." We piled into Gabby's tiny bed. Ridiculous. 2 adults trying to fit around a toddler. Gabby in the middle, clutching Peanut the elephant, one hand in mine and one in Molly's. She was asleep in minutes. Molly and I lay there, faces inches apart, our daughter between us. "This is nice," she whispered. "Yeah." I reached across Gabby to brush hair from Molly's face. "It is." "Patrick, come back to your room. Stay there, with me, every night." I knew what she was asking. We'd been taking things slow, separate sleeping arrangements, careful boundaries. But lying here, with Gabby safe between us and Molly's eyes shining in the dark. "Okay," I said. Molly didn't answer. She just got up, took my hand, and led me down the hall. That night, we stopped being roommates. We became family. A year. 12 months of morning routines and bedtime stories and lazy Sundays and arguments about dishes and making up afterward. 12 months of watching Gabby grow from toddler to tiny person with opinions and preferences and a stubborn streak a mile wide. 12 months of being happy. I'd forgotten what that felt like. "You're staring at rings again," Brian said, catching me at the garage one afternoon. I slammed my phone face down on the workbench. I was checking emails. "On a jewelry website?" "Maybe," Brian grinned. "About damn time, man." The ring took 3 months to save for. Nothing fancy, Molly would hate fancy. Simple gold band, small diamond, classic setting. The kind of ring a mechanic could afford without going into debt. I picked it up on a Tuesday, hid it in my toolbox at the garage where Molly would never look. Then I waited for the right moment. A week later, a letter arrived. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Isabel. The postmark was from California, some town I'd never heard of. I stood at the mailbox, heart pounding, wondering if I should just throw it away unopened. But Gabby deserved to know her half-sister someday, even if Isabel had failed her, even if she'd failed all of us. I opened it. Molly found me on the couch an hour later, the letter still in my hands. "What's wrong?" She sat beside me, touched my face. "Patrick, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Letter from Isabel." I handed it to her. "Read it." She did. I watched her face as she scanned the pages, surprise, sadness, something that might have been relief. "She's in rehab, alcohol and pills. Started after Lee died, apparently." I rubbed my eyes. She couldn't face what she'd done. Her mother dying, Gabby being mine, all of it, so she crawled into a bottle. Molly read the rest silently. I knew the words by heart already. "I'm marrying a man I met here. We're both trying to be better people. Tell Gabby I'm sorry. Tell her Grandma Lee would be proud of who she's becoming. Tell her I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be her mother." "Will you tell Gabby?" Molly asked quietly. "Someday, when she's old enough. She deserves to know the truth." I took the letter back, folded it carefully. Isabel was a lot of things, but she was also Lee's daughter, Gabby's family. That has to mean something. "You're a good man, Patrick Sullivan." "I try." She kissed me, soft and sweet, and I knew it was time. Saturday morning, Rock Creek Park. The same park where the single parents group met every week. Where I'd spent countless Saturday mornings watching Gabby play in the sandbox while Katie and Diane and Rosa compared war stories. Katie had agreed to watch Gabby for an hour. "Take your time," she'd said with a knowing smile. "I'll keep her busy." Molly and I walked to a bench near the creek, away from the playground, away from the crowds. The October air was crisp, leaves turning gold and red around us. The smell of fall, that specific DC smell of dying leaves and distant wood smoke. "This is nice," Molly said, settling onto the bench. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion." I sat beside her, heart hammering. "I just wanted to talk." "That sounds ominous." "It's not, I promise." I took a breath. "Molly, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest." Her expression shifted, curious, a little wary. "Anything. Do you see us in your future?" I met her eyes. "Not your visions, I mean if you had no sight at all, if you were just a normal woman with no idea what was coming. Would you choose me?" Molly was quiet for a long moment, then her eyes filled with tears. "Patrick," her voice broke. "I'd choose you in every timeline, every possible future. The sight didn't make me love you, it just helped me find you faster." I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the ring. Molly's hands flew to her mouth. "Molly Brennan," my voice was shaking now. "I don't understand your gift. I don't understand how any of this happened. 2 years ago, I woke up in a stranger's apartment with pink hair and a headache, and my whole life changed." "Patrick, I'm not finished." I was crying now too, both of us a mess on a park bench in October. "I know I love you. I know Gabby loves you. I know that every morning I wake up next to you is the best morning of my life." I held up the ring. "Will you marry me?" Molly laughed and cried simultaneously, that beautiful chaos of overwhelming emotion. "Yes," she grabbed my face with both hands. "Yes, yes, yes. I've been saying yes since the first time I saw you, Patrick Sullivan. You're just now asking." I slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. We got married on a Saturday in late October, the same church where Lee was buried. That felt right somehow, like she was there, watching over us. Katie was Molly's maid of honor, wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes. Brian was my best man, still wearing that same funeral suit, but at least he'd gotten it cleaned. And Gabby was the flower girl. 2.5 years old, toddling down the aisle in a white dress, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy. Half of them ended up in her hair. She didn't care. "Dada," she shouted when she saw me at the altar. "Dada, look, flowers." The whole church laughed. Molly walked down the aisle on her own, no father to give her away, no family who'd accepted her gift. But she didn't look alone. She looked radiant. Her hair was white as snow. "Winter," she'd said once. "It's been winter for a while now." But looking at her face as she walked toward me, I saw spring coming. The ceremony was short. Simple vows to have and to hold in sickness and in health. The same words I'd said to Lee in that hospital chapel, but different this time. Chosen instead of desperate, hopeful instead of grieving. "I do," Molly said, and she smiled like she'd known this moment was coming all along. "I do," I said, and I cried like a baby. Gabby cheered. Brian whistled. Katie dabbed her eyes with a tissue, and somewhere in the back of the church I could have sworn I felt Lee watching. Proud, at peace, finally at peace. Isabel didn't attend, but she sent flowers. White roses, the same kind Molly had left at the hospital chapel 2 years ago. The card said simply, "Be happy." "You both deserve it." I showed it to Molly after the reception. "That was kind of her," Molly said. "She's trying, I think she's really trying." "People can change." Molly squeezed my hand. "I've seen it, sometimes." We danced until midnight. Gabby fell asleep on Katie's shoulder around 9. Brian got drunk and gave a toast that made everyone cry. It was perfect. It was everything I never knew I wanted. On our wedding night, after the guests had gone and Gabby was asleep at Katie's and we were finally, blissfully alone, Molly told me something she'd been holding back. "I need to tell you what I see for us," she said. "Not a prophecy, a hope." I pulled her close under the hotel sheets. "I'm listening. We're going to have children, I think." "I think it might be more than one." I laughed. "Twins? Maybe." Her expression was uncertain, the first time I'd ever seen her unsure about a vision. The sight isn't clear, but I know we'll be parents together, real parents, a family. Whatever comes, I said, kissing her forehead, we'll handle it. Together, always. She got pregnant almost immediately, and it wasn't twins. It was triplets. The pregnancy was brutal. Morning sickness that lasted all day for the first 4 months. Constant monitoring because multiples are high risk. Bed rest by the 3rd trimester, Molly, who'd never sat still a day in her life, trapped in our apartment watching daytime TV and going slowly crazy. "I hate this," she groaned one evening while I made dinner and Gabby helped by spreading flour everywhere. "I can't do anything. I can't even pick up my own daughter." "Stepdaughter," I corrected automatically. Molly threw a pillow at my head. "She's my daughter, don't you dare say otherwise." I caught the pillow, grinning. "Yes, ma'am." The garage was thriving now. I'd hired 2 guys to help Martinez, and we'd actually turned a profit for the first time since Dad died. But I still went home every night. Made dinner. Read Gabby her bedtime stories. Rubbed Molly's swollen feet while she complained about being the size of a whale. By month 7, her hair had gone completely white. Not the silver white it had been before, pure, shocking white, like she'd aged 30 years overnight. "Stress," the doctor said. "It happens sometimes with difficult pregnancies. It might grow back, it might not." Molly just laughed. "Told you something would change," she said to me that night. "Winter's here for good now. I don't care what color your hair is, I love you. Even when I'm a whale? Especially when you're a whale." She threw another pillow at me, but she was smiling. April 2007, 6 weeks before her due date, Molly went into labor. I was at the garage when Katie called, dropped everything, broke about 15 traffic laws getting to the hospital. By the time I arrived, Molly was already in surgery. Triplets meant C-section. Triplets 6 weeks early meant emergency C-section. I paced the waiting room for 3 hours. Brian showed up somehow. Katie was there with Gabby, who'd fallen asleep on the waiting room chairs. "She's going to be fine," Brian kept saying. "She's tough, she'll be fine. You don't know that. Neither do you, so stop assuming the worst." At 11:47 p.m., a nurse appeared. "Mr. Sullivan." I was on my feet before she finished my name. "Is she okay? Are the babies? You have 3 healthy babies." The nurse was smiling. "2 boys and a girl. Your wife is asking for you." Brian let out a whoop. Katie burst into tears. Gabby woke up and demanded to know why everyone was being so loud. I was already running. The recovery room was small and bright and smelled like antiseptic and new life. Molly was propped up in bed, exhausted but glowing. Around her, in tiny hospital bassinets, were 3 of the smallest humans I'd ever seen. "Hey," she said weakly, "come meet your sons." I walked to her side on legs that felt like jelly. "Sons and daughter." She pointed to each bassinet in turn. "Connor Patrick. Liam Joseph and Rose Amanda." "Rose Amanda," I looked at her. "For Lee?" Amanda was her full name. Molly's eyes were wet. I thought she deserved to be remembered in our family, always. I picked up Rose first. She was impossibly small, barely bigger than my 2 hands together. Then Connor with his shock of dark hair. Then Liam, already squirming like he wanted to go somewhere. 3 babies. 3? What the hell are we going to do with 3 babies? Love them. Molly took my hand. And not sleep for the next 18 years. I laughed, cried, some combination of both. Then Gabby burst through the door, dragging a bewildered Katie behind her. "Babies," she shrieked. "Babies, babies, babies." She climbed onto the bed somehow and wormed her way under Molly's arm. "My babies," she announced. "My baby brothers and sister." "That's right, sweetheart." Molly kissed her head. "Your family." I looked at them, my wife, my daughter, my 3 newborn children, a family I never expected, a life I never planned. And I thought, this is it. This is everything. 10 years later, 2017, I'm 41 years old. Molly's 42. Gabby's 12 going on 30, all attitude and eye rolls and sudden bursts of affection that catch me off guard every time. The triplets are 10. Connor's the serious one. He wants to be a doctor. God help us. Liam's the troublemaker, Already been sent to the principal's office twice this year for creative interpretations of school rules. Rose is the artist, drawing constantly, covering our refrigerator with pictures that get better every month. We moved to a bigger house 3 years ago. Suburbs, backyard, room for the chaos that 4 kids generate. The garage is doing well, 3 locations now all over the DC area. Sullivan's Auto Repair. Dad would be proud, I think. I hope. Every February we go to the cemetery. The whole family, me and Molly and all 4 kids. We stand at Lee's grave and I tell the same story I've told every year since Gabby was old enough to understand. Your grandmother was brave, I say, my arm around Gabby's shoulders. She's almost as tall as me now. She was dying and she knew it, and she chose to have you anyway. She chose your life over hers. I know, Dad. Gabby rolls her eyes, but there are tears in them too. You tell me every year, because you should never forget. I won't. She puts flowers on the grave, white roses, always, and stands there for a long moment. The triplets get bored and wander off to chase each other between headstones. Molly watches them, making sure they don't knock anything over. She'd be proud of you, I say to Gabby. You think, I know. Gabby hugs me then, one of those sudden bursts of affection, quick and fierce and gone before I can really appreciate it. Love you, Dad. Love you too, kiddo. That night, after the kids are asleep, Molly and I sit on the back porch. The stars are out. The air smells like spring, that promise of warmth after a long winter. I had a vision today, Molly says quietly. The first clear one in years. I tense, old habits. Good or bad? Good. She takes my hand, very good. Tell me. She smiles, that same smile I fell in love with years ago. I saw us, old, gray, grandchildren running around this backyard, you complaining about your knees. My knees are fine. They won't be forever, she laughs. I saw us at Gabby's wedding, at the triplets' graduations. At Rose's first art show, she gets famous, by the way, don't tell her. I won't. I saw a long life, Patrick, her voice catches. A long, happy life, and you were happy in every moment, every single one. I pull her close. This woman who saw my future before I knew I had one, who waited for me, who loved me through grief and fear and doubt. I'm happy now, I say. That's enough. I know. She rests her head on my shoulder. But it's nice to see what's coming. We sit there together as the stars wheel overhead. 2 people who found each other against all odds, a fortune teller and a mechanic, a family built from tragedy and hope. The prophecy, finally and beautifully, complete.